It isn't often that I find an ARG that genuinely captivates me and makes me eager for new episodes. It's equally unlikely that I find an ARG that takes on a completely new and unique medium for communicating its story. Sure, we've got old TV commercials and VHS tapes and YouTube videos and all kinds of cool stuff like that that have been done time and time again and are all cool in their own right, but rarely does someone come out with an ARG that totally flips the formula upside down by taking a different route in how it showcases content. Let me introduce to you the June Archive and Restoration Project, the first Flipnote ARG. Yeah, you heard that right, a Flipnote Studio ARG. I guess technically it's more digital horror because there isn't a lot of interaction with the audience yet, but for simplicity's sake I'll just call it an ARG. This is totally crazy. I haven't heard of anything using Flipnote to create a project like this, but it's genius. I was totally captivated by the story of the June Archive and Restoration Project, which I'll now just call the June Archive, because it's telling its story through Flipnotes, which both connect to something that's important to me and they're also just unique. Today, I'm going to go over the ARG by examining all of the content that's currently out, trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and then offering my own interpretation of it. I know this story is a work in progress, so I can guarantee this video will get at least one follow-up, but I want to get some ideas out there before the story goes too far. Before we get into the video, I'll address a few things. This content isn't all too horrifying, but my audience isn't really used to this type of thing, so when we watch the content, I'll have a little frog in the corner. If it's green, then I promise you there's no jump scare or anything too spooky. If it's orange, that may mean that the content is just disturbing, but not a jump scare, and if it's red, that means that a jump scare is imminent within about 5 seconds. I think this is a good way for me to show the content unadulterated, but also respect anybody that might be watching this at 4 a.m. Also, I'm going to get into this video assuming that you know what Flipnote Studio and Flipnote Hateno are. If you'd like some more information on the topic, you can check out my original iceberg explanation about Flipnote, or you can scour the multitudes of awesome video essays on the topic. Now, let's get into the video. I'll start by giving some background to the channel. Also, while I'll go over everything, I highly encourage you to support the creator by watching all of the content on their channel. I promise you it'll only take a couple of minutes. Back? Alright, cool. The June Archive's YouTube channel was created on April 12, 2022, the same day 3 videos were uploaded. Right off the bat, this gives me some important clues about the project. You see, the content in these videos must have taken quite a long time, meaning I believe the character has made all of them or most of them and is sitting on them, since they couldn't have made all 3 of these in one day. Though the Twitter account is a bit older, it's basically the same thing. I believe that this project is entirely planned out, given that the content is posted pretty frequently, though obviously requiring a ton of time to make. I think a lot of these flip notes have already been made. This is a great sign. It means that the creator has some big plans and has something to say. This is a very well thought out project. But enough of that little tangent. Let's move on and look at some more details. Earlier I mentioned that Twitter account, which was created on April 6, 2022. It also has some important information. However, it's usually just the same YouTube uploads as well as some comments which I believe supplement the ARG but are more just designed to get popularity and not necessarily add anything to the story. Interestingly, some content goes up on Twitter before YouTube though, so I really can't say for sure which website is supposed to be the primary location for this art, but I'll just work with YouTube since it's more accessible for my audience. The channel has a surprisingly low subscriber count currently, despite ARGs and digital horror channels usually rising in popularity extremely quickly. Note the logo for the channel is a cute little cat named Fuzz who will play an extremely important role later on. Let's begin with the first 3 videos that were uploaded on April 12th. The first video has a thumbnail with a classic Flipnote frog on it, titled a file name ending in .ppm. For anyone that doesn't know, a .ppm file is a file type used for Flipnotes, so it's clear that the channel is trying to convey an authentic upload of Flipnotes. I'll also note that I ran all of these file names through some basic decoders looking for a hidden message, but I found nothing. However, in times like these, random numbers are usually not random, so I encourage you to look for messages in these file names because honestly, I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to decrypting things like this, so I probably did it wrong. If you do happen to find anything, please let us know. Now let's read the description of this first video. Flipnote by Jonas. Memory used, 400 kilobytes. Supposed upload date, May 2013. This Flipnote has been restored from corrupted data. The archive managed to come in possession of about 400 or so Flipnotes that were extracted from Hatena servers immediately after the site shut down. Viewing them in the Flipnote menu reveals there is data contained in them, however the data is most likely corrupted. Usually we would consider this corrupted data a lost cause if it weren't for one Flipnote that has all its data intact. It raises a lot more questions than it answers, and it brings into question the authenticity of the other ppm files in the collection, as well as their upload date. This information is really interesting. The Flipnote has been recovered from corrupted data. Keep that in mind as we dive further into this ARG. These are Flipnotes that, right after the Flipnote Hatena shutdown in 2013, were somehow downloaded, though in the process got corrupted. And the description ominously ends by saying there are a lot more questions than answers, and that all of the data, like upload dates, can't necessarily be trusted. But let's go ahead and watch the video. Wow. A simple song of the Flipnote frog saying goodbye, made by someone enjoying the final days of Flipnote Hatena, glitches out into a horrifying screen with a dead frog taking the center stage. Now, these types of videos were super common in the last few months before Flipnote Hatena shut down. Let me show you a few examples.
We never got to dance. You never took a chance.
And also, something you'll notice about these Flipnotes if you're a Flipnote fan is that the creator of this series is mixing their own artwork with real Flipnotes. In fact, we can see the original version of this Flipnote right here. Let's take a look.
I followed you, we would like each other's.
So remember that the creator of this ARG is using real Flipnotes, and also, for this one, goodbye Flipnotes were very common. Essentially, the idea conveyed with this Flipnote is that it's a normal goodbye Hatena Flipnote, but once it was downloaded, it became corrupted and turned into this monstrosity. Very spooky. Now let's go on to the next two videos, which I'll talk about and play back to back because they sort of follow off of each other. Let's first look at the descriptions of these videos. The first one suggests that the Flipnote that was downloaded was this one, created by Fred Blankenberg, but it got corrupted. The second one isn't actually labeled as an original Flipnote, just a continuation of the first, and the description says it may be a record of what happened to Hatena after the server shut down. Let's go ahead and watch these two back to back.
Take a look in the kitchen. You can't find them. You can't find them.
You can't find them.
You can't find them. Your friends are no more.
Where is everyone? Where is everyone? Oh, me no. Where did they go?
They grew up. They moved on. And you, why do you still live in the past? Get it. Alright, kid, here's your hot dog.
Oh my gosh. These are absolutely brilliant. These are my favorite pieces of the project. I just have to say how much I like this right here. Even if the June archive didn't exist as a whole, these Flipnotes would be brilliant freestanding art on their own. It's just so hard for me to explain how cool this is to people that don't know Flipnote. For those that did, you'll recognize these Flipnotes. These are real separate Flipnotes that frame a new story. For context, I'll play footage from some of these original classic Flipnotes so that you get an idea of what I'm talking about.
Take a look in the kitchen. You can't find them. Your chips are no more. There's no Fritos, no more Twinkies, just some crumbs on the floor.
Where is everyone? Oh, me no. Where did they go. Answer me.
Alright, kid, here's your hot dog. Yes, it's your hot dog. Kid, I said I have your hot dog.
But here's what we're seeing in the ARG. Basically, in these two flip notes, there's a story being built that all of the flip notes created by users are living in a world, specifically in a place I'll call Hatena City. Hatena City thrives so long as there are people watching and supporting the content. However, when Doomsday hits and the servers shut down, the users can't be found, leading Mario in this clip to leave the setting of his original flip note and venture out into the desolate world. Obviously, there's no logic behind flip notes existing in a universe, but Hatena City acts as a personification of Hatena and the people that used it. As Mario goes further and further down his own flip note, we see more of Hatena City. Then, presumably, Mario dies, as shown by these zeros. If you didn't know, in Mario games, there's a running clock when you go through a level, and if it gets to 0, Mario dies. In this flip note, Mario literally runs out of time. And for the first time, but certainly not the last, we touch on the theme of running out of time. We then see one of the most important figures in the ARG, the Clock Cat. It's a decrepit, broken cat abomination with a clock on its side displaying 11 o'clock. 1 hour until midnight. You can also see that's being operated, given these strings here which are literally being pulled. It's not a living entity, it's an avatar being controlled by something else. We see a hole in the sky display the date June 1st, 2013, the first day that Flipnote Hatena was gone, in most territories at least, because the server shut down on May 31st of that year. The date turns into an eye before the scene switches to a different Flipnote. One character asks where everyone went. Well, who is everyone? Are they the people using Hatena? Are they creators? Or even Flipnotes? The second character, instead of doing his original skit, gets his face turned into an eyeball and the clip ends. In the second part, we return to the conversation where the man asks the same questions, and the scene then shifts to the same red Hatena City. He then gets this horrifying message from the other character saying that everyone, whether it's creators or users of Flipnote Studio, moved on with their lives.
They grew up. They moved on.
The character then turns into this character, one who's very important but we don't yet know his identity. He asks the stick character a terrifying question.
And you, why do you still live in the past?
We also see Clock Cat again, this time with his clock showing 11:27. The character is then back into a hot dog stand, which is the setting for yet another Flipnote. Though it seems for a second that the Flipnote world has returned to normalcy, the Flipnote ends like this. Something is still off. The next video is a break from the norm. It's a personal message from Fuzz, the mascot for the June archives. Let's watch. Now really quick, I'll throw out here that the ending is a bit disturbing, so you've been warned.
Hello, my name is Fuzz. Fuzz the cat, mascot for the June archives. And from us here at the archives to all of you out there, we'd like to say, whoa! We've received a lot of support for the archive project. We're incredibly grateful. Please be aware that our restoration process takes time, and that we are working as hard as we can to get updates on archived files. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for supporting the archive and restoration project.
Now, here's something I want to throw out there. I think the beginning of this video is a genuine message from the creator thanking us for watching. It just seems really genuine. But of course, that's not what we're here to see. We're here to see the end where we get a couple of creepy messages, starting with Fuzz asking why we're still here. Fuzz then asks if we're looking for something in the archives, but more importantly, Fuzz says, I am. Fuzz then gets his neck broken, which is kind of weird honestly. He's not dead and I think this was just for shock value, but let's rewind to his statement. I am. Fuzz is looking for something, but what? Is it something simple like a lost Flipnote or even an old friend? Or is it something more, something grander like a bygone era, or a feeling that the creator got from Hatenna back in its glory days that he's never been able to replicate? I tend to think it's the latter, but now's not time for speculation, so let's move on to the next video. This next video adds a lot more to the story. First, let's read the description. This is important. The description establishes that the videos are not necessarily in a chronological order. I think this could mean that this Flipnote takes place sometime in the last few months of Flipnote Hatenna, well before the servers actually shut down. Now let's watch it.
Aw man, now I have to add 100 stars. Dude, it's just a game. It's not like it's your mom. But Starface won't get me if I don't!
The stars are growing dim and dwindling in number. But why? Something's not right.
Whoa, a lot just happened here. Now, I don't remember Starface specifically that well, but during the time of Flipnote Studio, there were a lot of Flipnotes where the creator would say if you didn't add stars, somebody, usually Ouija or Elmo, would get you or them. But in this disturbed perversion of a classic Flipnote, Starface actually does come, and he brutally kills Kirby, and thus this Flipnote, to extract a star, breaking it and seemingly absorbing it as some sort of life force. Then we get his monologue. From his speech, we can discern that the stars power, preserve, or just feed the living Flipnotes, and with Hatenna shut down, they're dwindling in number. So now, Flipnotes, or at least the characters living within them, are turning on one another, extracting the star life force from themselves to survive just a bit longer. This sheds a bit more light on what's happening in the world, and it also shows us a new character. Let's move on. Now, what we're about to watch is a lot like these two from earlier, where we see views of the city. Yes, the city, which is actually mentioned in this Flipnote. We'll also see more of the monster, and we get confirmation that 27 minutes have passed. Let's go back over the whole thing.
Help wanted. Welcome to my doodles. Can I take your order? I'd like a way out. What?
Listen. I know it's hard to believe. And don't panic, but we're all trapped here. There's a dark void encircling us, and it's slowly closing in. And if we don't find a way out of here, we're all going to die.
Hey, what's up with the guy in the drive-thru? He says there's something blocking everybody in the city. No one can get in or out. What the heck? Hey, let me talk to that guy. Get your hands off my headset!
Hello? Is anyone out there? Help me.
The Flipnote is normal until the man in the drive-thru starts speaking. He tells the workers not to panic, but that they're trapped in the city. We then see the dark void, and he says if they can't escape, they're going to die. This must mean that Flipnotes have already started dying, and the ones we've seen are just some survivors. The characters in the restaurant begin to fight one another to the dismay of the character in the car. Music begins to play while we get a huge shot of the monster encircling the city. This video is important for quite a few reasons, but mostly because it establishes a lot of rules in this universe. In this art project, Flipnotes all take place in one city. It seems that characters from these Flipnotes live in this city, which I call Hatenna City earlier, and they go to work in their respective settings. When they act out the Flipnote, they earn their living by getting stars from users. But after the Flipnote ends, they're free to clock out and roam the city. Perhaps they can even leave the city, given that the character here says that they can't leave, which lends me to believe that under normal circumstances, they're free to travel to other places. When something goes wrong and the characters don't play their parts as intended, other characters get confused. Some of these characters have already been enveloped by the closing void and are apparently dead. Those that remain are frantically scrambling to find a solution. Some of the more powerful ones are roaming the streets, even killing off other Flipnotes for more stars. The next video is much different than anything else. just being a song, which again encapsulates a pretty big part of Hatenna's history. It's a modified version of a song lamenting over the service before it ended. Let's go ahead and watch it.
A long, long time ago, I still remember how those flip notes made me smile. Now I feel like I am gonna cry. Time to put down our DSIs the day Hatenna died. Singing bye-bye, Hatenna, bye-bye. Never thought the day would come, Hatenna's river ran dry. After May 31st, no reason for DSIs. Singing, 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 singing.
Memory is the key to reality. If it burns down and no one remembers it was there, it's almost as if there was nothing there to begin with.
The song itself is pretty typical, showing some shots of the city. The monologue we get with the familiar character is interesting, again touching on the themes of remembering and missing a bygone era. But the one thing that intrigues me about this is the description of the video, which suggests that this may have taken place before the other Flipnotes. So it seems that this Flipnote right here may be our earliest example of the Flipnotes corrupting once Flipnotes learned Hatenna was being shut down. At the end we see a very curious shot saying, "Unlock, do not destroy," with what looks to be a vial perhaps? Final shots in Flipnotes like this with some sort of prompt from the watcher were pretty common, but with this one specifically, I'm just not entirely sure how to interpret it. I do want to get to what is currently the final video though. This is another entirely original video with our pal Fuzz, so let's go ahead and watch it.
Hello! My name is Fuzz! Fuzz the cat! Mascot for the June Archives! I like saying that. Today is June 1st. Over 9 years ago, Flipnote Hatenna officially closed its services for good. A moment of silence for all that we have lost.
There's someone calling, hey.
Whoops! Left my phone on! Hang on! Let me just answer that real quick. Hello? Isn't nostalgia just the worst? You get these warm and fuzzy feelings inside for a bygone era that slowly fade and crumble into nothingness as you realize that the good times are behind you. You can't go back! But what if you could turn back the clock just a little bit? What if you could change a thing or two? Oh, well, Fuzz, wouldn't that alter the present as well? That's exactly the point.
So, this video opens with a happy Fuzz, talking about the project and respectfully holding a moment of silence for the Flipnote service. He then gets a phone call, and we see the other side of the call. A much darker, angrier Fuzz begins to speak. Isn't nostalgia just the worst? Again, touching on the themes of growing up and moving on. Then, Fuzz says that he wants to change the past, and he's interrupted by this character who says changing time could be dangerous and alter the present, to which Fuzz responds that that's the very point. Wow. This Flipnote highlights Fuzz's intentions to a clear degree. Fuzz is somehow trying to change the past to make Flipnote Hatenna last just a bit longer, because he's missing something. He's looking for something. We don't have all the answers yet, but it's now time to look at the big picture and try to make some conclusions about this ARG. Allow me to lay out the goals of what I want to tackle in this section. First, I want to establish an understanding of the setting. What is Hatenna City? How do the characters live in it? What are the rules of this world? Then I want to learn who certain characters are. What is this evil entity? What is Clockcat? Who controls it? Who are these survivors? After that, I want to establish a rough timeline of events. Finally, and most importantly, I want to learn who is Fuzz, what are his aims, and thus the aims of this project as a whole. Let's establish these one by one. I know I briefly touched on this earlier, but let's take a deeper look into the rules of this world. We've established that the characters within Flipnotes have free and independent will. Though they usually act out their Flipnotes like they should, they're free to break out of character, and do so when something goes wrong. When this happens, it's like they're surprised, or even angry at the other characters, likely because they suspect they won't get their stars. When someone plays a Flipnote, the characters are summoned to act it out, and they get stars for doing so, preserving their life force. Obviously, at the height of Flipnote, thousands of people could have been playing the same Flipnote at once, so my theory doesn't perfectly explain how the Flipnote characters actually do what they do, but give me some wiggle room. These Flipnotes mostly live within the city, but we know that in this world, there are places outside. Perhaps those lands are where the other Flipnotes take place. This would actually make a lot of sense. I believe that the most popular Flipnotes are concentrated within this city. The characters in Flipnotes like Mario, which are some of the most popular ones from back in the day, all live in the city perhaps because they are played more frequently and thus called up to duty more often. And by duty I mean acting out their Flipnote. So maybe outside of the city are suburbs with less popular content, stretching all the way to wildlands where other Flipnotes, maybe ones that never even got any views, are stationed. This would explain why the Flipnotes within the city have survived for so long. Think about it. During the final days of Flipnote pictured in this story, less popular Flipnotes were the first to lose their audience. Thus, the void trapped them before the more popular ones in Flipnote City. The Flipnotes living here are the ones being watched until the end, and since they have a heftier supply of stars, they can live longer. Remember what this character said. The Flipnotes that are unavailable and forgotten essentially never existed. Those are the Flipnotes that have been enveloped by the void outside of the city. So I think this gives us a rough understanding of the world of this ARG, which shows a unique view of the Flipnote characters where they're sentient, interact with one another, and all live in harmony, at least when things were good. So what about the Void, Clock Cat, and these characters? To be quite honest, I want to start with these two because I think they're the least complex. They both exist to explain things in the world, and the creator of the ARG gets to talk through them. They may be real characters from Flipnotes, which I don't know specifically, and hopefully later we could identify them, but if they are made up for the purpose of the ARG, we could assume that they were characters in once popular Flipnotes that are now forced to die a slow, agonizing death as their viewership slowly fades away, prolonging their lifetime only by killing other Flipnotes. But importantly, they act as an avatar for the creator of this ARG to talk through and touch on the themes of nostalgia, moving on, growing up, and the sad reality of Flipnote Hatena being shut down. Now let's look at the Void. The Void is essentially a Lovecraftian monster that can take slightly different forms, and it's in my opinion a representation of people leaving Flipnote Hatena. When a Flipnote is watched for the very last time, the Void encircles it, and slowly, everything is covered by the Void. The Flipnotes fear it because, remember, they're trapped in this world. Sure, they have free will, but they're bound to the physical forms that their creators gave them, and they probably can't leave this plane of existence. They are truly helpless to stop this tide because when people sign off a Flipnote for the last time, they completely lose communication with these characters. The artist behind this has chosen to make the Void look like a monster, but it's just a design choice. The monster isn't an independent entity, it's a representation of what's happening. Now we get to the most difficult part to explain. Clock Cat. Let's look at his features. He's an animatronic cat in a decaying state, and the clock shows 1 hour till midnight, though 27 minutes pass between these two videos. Perhaps Clock Cat is some sort of representation of Hatena dying. It represents the clock running out of time. It could also be a representation of the Flipnote community in its final days, something once grand and well aware of its days being numbered, but now weak and decrepit. I don't really have an answer to this one, but given that Fuzz is also a cat, I think these two may be connected. However it may be, Clock Cat is very important, and the fact that it's a cat is an intentional detail. I'm going to move on now because I really don't have much else to say here, but I do want to emphasize that a big goal of my research with this ARG moving forward is to find out what Clock Cat is, and I want your help in the comments below. Now we have to make a timeline of what's happened. We know the updates are from the present day, and the other Flipnotes from around the time when Flipnote Hatena shut down, May 31st, 2013. We also know that between these two Flipnotes and this one that 27 minutes pass, so whenever these fall on the timeline, they're next to each other. That leaves us with 3 Flipnotes left. Now with the Kirby and Starface one, I have to suggest that this one maybe comes before the others. This is because Starface hasn't quite figured out what's going on yet, and I'd bet this Flipnote takes place just when the Hatena shutdown had been announced and people were still leaving Flipnote and moving on. With this first Flipnote here, the sudden death of the frog makes me think that this takes place closer to midnight or when the actual shutdown occurs, given that the frog, a representation of the service, swiftly dies. Now with regard to the song, we know from the description that the June archives speculate that this one is older than the others. I can use this to place this Flipnote at the end of the timeline, but I really can't say why, nor can I figure out where else it might go. As you can imagine, my evidence for these last 3 isn't super solid. I'm just trying to piece together what I can. If we have a timeline, I think this is what it would look like. So now we get to the final question, which in some ways is the hardest one to answer. Who is Fuzz? More specifically, who is behind this entire ARG? Well, I sort of have an idea. Just look at this project as a whole from a macro level. This project is trying to show how awful the Hatena shutdown was, doing so by personifying Flipnote characters and showing how they would react to the shutdown if they were alive. This apocalyptic presentation of normal events is designed to make you feel emotional about the shutdown, just like the creator feels. Didn't Fuzz mention earlier that he was looking for something in the archives? Is he looking for someone? Not likely. I mean, perhaps he made a friend on Flipnote years ago, but why would he go through all this trouble to find them? Is he looking for a deleted Flipnote? Maybe, but we have lots of Flipnotes archived. I think what Fuzz is looking for is an audience. That's right, an audience. I think the person behind Fuzz was a popular Flipnote creator back in the day, and the thing that they and Fuzz are looking for is a dedicated fan base interested in Flipnote Studio again. I say this because the animation talent here is incredible. This isn't just some guy that wanted to make a Flipnote ARG, this is someone who really knows what they're doing. The creator of the June Archive and Restoration Project was a king of Flipnote. They were at the top. They enjoyed friends, fans, and a community that was engaged with their work. We know how nostalgic Fuzz is.
Isn't nostalgia just the worst?
Why would he be nostalgic for a time he didn't enjoy if he wasn't doing well on Hatena when the service was live? I truly believe that Fuzz is a creator that, if you're a Flipnote fan, you would probably recognize. Who that is, you ask? I don't really know. I don't have any guesses, mostly because I can't connect the voice to older Flipnotes or notice any clues in the art style that would give it away. But if any of you, anyone in my audience does recognize anything or have a guess as to who Fuzz might be, I sincerely want you to put it in the comments section. Going off of this theory, it's possible that this project may even be done by multiple creators. The art styles here are very different. They shift frequently as the animator replicates the art style of old Flipnotes. That and the obvious fact that there are multiple voices of characters. I actually believe that upwards of 5 or 6 creators on Flipnote who remained friends after the shutdown wanted to create this ARG to gather attention around the Flipnote community and reunite them for one last fun ride. Maybe even grow a fan base like the one they used to have. But of course, this is just my personal take on it. This ARG is far from over. In fact, I bet we're only around the halfway point of content that the June archive is ready to put out. There's a good chance that another video will be uploaded while I'm editing, which would literally drive me insane, but I'm certain that there will be more content. I'll be sure to come back and make a video once the project is completed, or even before then if there's more to think about and theorize. This story isn't over by any means, so please stay engaged with this ARG. In fact, I would really like you to subscribe to that channel. It's criminally undersubscribed to. That content was phenomenal, and as a show of thanks to me, I'd love for you to interact with Fuzz's content. Remember, we have lots of questions to answer. Who is Clockcat? Or our pseudo-protagonist? And what's in the vial? Let me know down below where you think we can go from here, and if you have any guesses to who is behind this. Thank you all for sticking to the end of this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this to support similar projects, and again, thank you all for your time. Have a great night. That was where I thought the video was going to end. Thanks for sticking for the whole thing up till this point. I have to say though, I've made a big mistake, and I've left out a ton of important content. I got to the end of this video, I got ready to publish it, and then I discovered something that I should have discovered a long time ago. I turned to the subreddit for this project, and I found something absolutely crazy that turns this entire ARG upside down. An unlisted video. That's right, an unlisted video. If you want to watch it for yourself, you can check it out at this link, which will also be in the description of this video, but we're going to go ahead and watch it right here.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Charles Robert Bartholomew Winston III, Esquire. Today, I will present some more tips on keeping your DSI system safe and
An enemy virus is a parasite that spreads from mind to mind and grows in strength as more and more people form memories surrounding it. The more hosts that remember the parasitical entity, the more stably it roots itself in reality, becoming more and more real each time it spreads. With enough hosts, the parasite may even gain access to the physical world and cease to be a concept or an idea. Usually, hosts will be unaware they are infected with a memory virus and will continue to propagate and spread the parasite to others. How to prevent the spread of a memory virus in 4 steps. 1. Isolate the source of the virus. Keep it away from prying eyes. 2. Destroy all iterations of the parasite, visual, written, auditory, etc. 3. Inform potential hosts of their level of risk. 4. Pray that it's not already out of hand.
What the heck? This completely flips the script upside down. This is a parody of DSI safety flip notes, which were pretty popular at the time, but this one's talking about a memory virus? Oh my gosh, it doesn't make any sense. Memory is the key. Time travel. Fuzz? What is going on? Is Fuzz a memory virus? So everything I told you before this section would have been a pretty good interpretation of the ARG, at least what's just posted to YouTube, but it turns out there's a lot more here. Interestingly, the description of this video maybe even confirms what I said about there being a team working on this, but it turns out we basically know who's behind the project. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't even discover this myself, but rather I stumbled across this Reddit theory. Essentially, it's almost confirmed that Cereal Bowl, a pseudo-memo creator, is certainly behind this project. How do I know this? Well, let's first take a look at his Twitter. The description obviously hints at the June archive, and the icon is a picture of Kirby from his Flipnote. The nail in the coffin, however, is that on Cereal Bowl's pseudo-memo account, some of the Flipnotes from the June archive were posted here, literally as far back as 2021. These Flipnotes aren't new. So that's it, right? Some creator turned his Flipnotes into an ARG? Well, I still have a lot of questions about Cereal Bowl. I really want to understand his aims here and how he's running the project. I'll start by laying out that he has an old series called His Original Content, which has a plain connection to the June archive.
Oh boy, my favorite seat. Excuse me, do you mind?
Did you catch that? It's Clock Cat. But he's not in disrepair like he is in the June archive videos. With the discovery of Cereal Bowl's pseudo-memo account, we now have a whole nother section of lore for this ARG. There's another thing I want to watch here, a 2016 Flipnote on the same channel. Let's watch it.
Dallas, 1963. There is a cat. Moscow, 1991. There is a cat. Here are some stairs. There is a cat. New Orleans, 2005. There is a cat. What we're seeing is that we're being observed or manipulated by a cat or a number of cats. What can we do about it? Nothing! You can do nothing!
Is that Fuzz? Yeah, it is. Fuzz has been an evil entity for years now. Now let's jump off pseudo-memo for a minute. We'll take a look at Cereal Bowl's Twitter. He's got all these posts where he's digging up Flipnotes that he saved years ago, all the way back from 2011, but wait, Fuzz? How is Fuzz, a character made by Cereal Bowl in, at the latest 2016, showing up in other people's Flipnotes? From 11 years ago, no less. Oh no. Oh my gosh, it's all coming together now. Fuzz is somehow, he's traveling backwards in time. He's embedding himself in Flipnotes and in our minds. He's weaponizing nostalgia. Fuzz is the memory virus. Oh no, I'm so sorry guys, I've exposed you to this cognito hazard. Stop watching this video. If you remember Flipnotes from 2011 or so with Fuzz, delete them. Do your part to get rid of the memory virus. Fuzz is not what he seems.